The nature of tradition. There appears to be a great deal of variation, if not outright confusion, surrounding the meaning of the word tradition. Ask around for a definition, and you're likely to receive a response along the lines of, "What tradition means to me." Like so many words, such as art and beauty, the contemporary use of tradition has been so extended and personalized as to be diluted of any clarity of meaning or any shared objectivity. Taking beauty as an example, an organized spreadsheet or devilishly orchestrated hostile takeover might be touted just as beautiful to one beholder as a Provençal field of lavender in spring is to another. Alternatively, a can of excrement quite likely will be considered as much a work of art as a painting by Van Gogh. Individual expression being the minimum, really the only requirement to be so called. Tradition, I would contend, is fundamentally, however, not an individual enterprise. As American as apple pie. Who doesn't love the buttery, flaky crust filled with the sweet, tarty goodness of green apples? I could hardly think of a more recognized symbol that captures the spirit of the particularly American tradition. It's not a tart, a torte, or strudel. Neither will blueberries nor rhubarbs do as an alternative filling. It's apple pie, and it's American as it gets. Apparently, Americans have been baking these pies since the days of the Puritans, well before there was a United States. Apple pie remains one of the few desserts many Americans can still make from scratch. Along the way, suet got replaced with butter, and spices like cinnamon and nutmeg were added as they became available. Subtle changes, improvements came along as recipes were passed down from one generation to another over the past 400 years. So, what about the Twinkie? You know, the golden sponge cake with creamy filling, currently owned by the private equity firm Apollo Global Management. Is the Twinkie an American tradition too? Hey, what if I want to make a Twinkie? Well then, it's time to go shopping. What will I need? Okay, well, here's at least some of the ingredients. Dextrose, monocalcium phosphate, soy protein isolate, polysorbate 60. Make sure it's 60, not 40 or 50. Sodium stearoyl lactylate. All right, there my pronunciation is going to be impossible for the remaining ingredients, which are many. Obviously, this is not going to be easy, and let's say for the sake of argument, I can gather the ingredients, less the unrevealed natural and artificial flavors. Then what? Can I make a Twinkie? I'm sure I could make some kind of cream-filled golden sponge cake, but would it be a Twinkie? My understanding is that the manufacture of the Twinkie is not so easy. To achieve the signature shape and look requires a massive amount of costly industrial infrastructure that entails complex government regulation and permitting. But again, for the sake of argument, let's say I cut a few corners on the ingredients and can produce a reasonable facsimile with the equipment available to me in my kitchen at home. Would I be able to bake, market, and sell Twinkies? Perhaps the Twinkie is a tradition, but I'll argue that it is not a tradition in the same sense that apple pie is a tradition. Twinkies are only a tradition of consumption. In fact, I would go further in asserting that Twinkies and most all mass-produced products of industry are anti-traditional. They undermine food, architectural, textile, and many other traditions. Furthermore, they tend to consistently manifest the following three characteristics: massive capital investment, standardization of processes and systems, proprietary intellectual property. Bye-bye, Miss American Pie. Never does nature say one thing and wisdom another. Juvenal, 2nd century CE. However, allow me to digress and return to the subject of tradition. Our English word tradition derives quite directly from the Latin tradere, literally meaning something given, dare, over, trans. Since its first recorded use, it has always carried the sense of something given or handed over, particularly from one generation to the next, such as recipes from a parent or grandparent to a child, or the skills passed on from a master to an apprentice. Traditions are distinctively democratic, the original open source know-how belonging to the commons, millions of minds addressing themselves to the needs of, and constantly evolving and improving the pleasure of everyday life. Furthermore, traditions have proven to be eminently sustainable. For tens of thousands of years, mankind had lived in accord with nature because it saw itself as nature, in stark relief to modern society's standardized, proprietary, heavily capitalized industrial processes that treat humankind as one big marketplace and the earth as little more than a mine from which to extract every possible resource. Unsustainable, indefensible behavior that will inevitably lead to environmental collapse. Impersonal corporations target for elimination, by inhuman systems of competition and bureaucratic decree, the inherited legacy of tradition that took our fathers thousands of years to build, the cultural know-how to live at equilibrium with nature just when we'll need it most. Are you a traditional craftsman, farmer, musician, or the like? Think of yourself as you truly are. At first the beneficiary, and now guardian, trustee of hundreds, if not thousands of years of investment, accumulated human wisdom of how to live in harmony with nature as an authentic human being.